So let's dive into part two of this social matters talk slash discussion. Let's put it out there. The beard and the hair. It's a pandemic. What can we do? Anyway, let's get into some serious matters here right now. So I could call this Black Lives Matters part two, but really we could go with All Lives Matter on this discussion, but we will cover a lot of Black Lives Matters because come on, this is what's happening in society right now, cannot be ignored. And the key thing here I'd like people to concentrate on is the bigger picture, which people, I've looked at the news and I've not seen it on the news. I've looked on social media. I'm not really seeing anyone tackle this. And what am I talking about? I'm talking about the fact that if you look at these protests and if you look at the nature of the protest and you look at what's actually happening, yes, there's the Black Lives Matters slogan, motivational, let's get together and march theme, we can call it. But like I say, a lot of people might say, well, when I said this empty, they might say, that's a bit harsh or that's very judgmental. But if we look at it, what I'm trying to say is that the goal, what is it behind it? Is it just people saying it? Is it just people marching with that said? Is it just the fact that because what's happening in one location in America, it's spread over here? Or is there a meaning behind it? And this is what I'm going to encourage. We need to have a meaning behind Black Lives Matter. And here's where we're talking about society here, and here's where I will have a comparison to other movements and other protests and see where, when we protest, what we need to focus on and what we can't lose track of. Now, I'll say that I'm going to move that on actually, and what I'm going to tackle is the bigger picture I was talking about, and then we're going to go on to where people lose track in a protest, in a march, in a movement. So let's look at the bigger picture first. What you've got is we're in June 2020. If you look over the past 3 years, we've had to face up with the whole Brexit debate. Should we leave? Should we go? And then, the vote was cast. Majority of the country said they want to leave the EU, and then that was politics. Then you have to recognize, yes, we got the pandemic, right? No, sorry. Before that, we had the gay rights pride, and obviously people who identify themselves as gay or bisexual or transsexual, or they have their sexual orientation is not straight. They protested. They wanted government to change legislation. They wanted certain things put in place. Then you had we can call it Brexit Part 2, because then we had what they call the Brexit election, and again Conservatives won, and everybody said, okay, well, the Leavers have won, etc, etc. Then you got the pandemic, and then again the conspiracies come up. Then you had 5G just before and just after the pandemic kicked off. And then there's conspiracies, and if you see what I'm doing, you're going to see there's events that are affecting the world, or affecting Europe, or that's affecting the UK, right? But these are matters that happen in other societies as well, but they deal with it accordingly. And then now we have Black Lives Matters. Now, what you have to understand in these protests is that we are now in a boiling pot. We're in a melting pot of different social issues, different political issues, different issues and problems that are left unsolved. And if you go back to my first video, is because when we want to go to government and tell government to sort out the matter or deal with the matter, what we have is key thing we have is, like I said, the melting pot, the boiling pot. But what we have, no one's actually focusing on calling someone out, for accountability. And that's what I said in my last video. And what I'm trying to say here now is these protesting, a great example I'll show you is when there was protesting about the university, about the fees, the tuition fees going up. And there was a protest about it. It was peaceful to a certain degree, but obviously there was some clashes, whatever. But the long short of it is there was enough people within that movement that wanted to tackle the educational secretary. And he or she at that time was named, I believe, in certain media sources. And though the tuition fee still went up, there was a lot done to make sure that the student wasn't impacted as much as was feared. That's what I got from that. If you got something different, please drop it in the comments. Let me know your thoughts. But overall, the government's attention, they got the government's attention. So let's now look at the whole Black Matters movement. And when I mentioned the Pride, the Pride March, etc., when I mentioned different things, let's move on to my next point. Yeah, is that so? The first point is who's being held to account. The tuition fees situation, they did get the government's attention. The person held to account was the education secretary. That person had to speak up and had to come out the woodworks and actually face the music. It's still ongoing. Obviously, there's a new government, and the government's still getting used to being in power and then the full majority and everything. And I'm sure it's an issue that will come up again. But but my point is that's the only protest I've actually seen over the past 10 years that's actually got the government's attention. What's getting the government attention now is not what does Black Lives Matters mean and what changes you want to see. What's getting the government's attention is the riots and the protests that are happening. And again, in my last video, I said you have the protesters that want to see change. They need to make their changes clear, by the way, and that's why I said you name the people who the heads of those government in all areas that need to make the change. You know what I mean? You need to call them out. Right? But then you got the rioters and the looters, and they're taking advantage of a volatile situation. But what you have here is, again, that boiling pot now boiling over. That melting pot, everything stewed is now blowing over. And now you have people saying that, well, no, it's not peaceful, and this is why. I've heard it. It's on the news. You can go online. That this is why black people will get treated that way, and it's the racists that have come out the pot because they've got their point, they've got their agenda. So my point of matter is right now, this is what the point is. You now have a melting pot, and the government now, Boris Johnson, has to step forward and with his department heads and deal with each situation accordingly, and each are reporting at each other. Yeah. Now let me move on to my next point. What we lose track of. Down the years, there's been equal rights movement. A lot of women, a lot of feminists, a lot of the man v woman debates come up every minute, and they wanted equality down the years, and they wanted better pay, equal pay, etc., etc., etc. And that's been going on for decades, and I'm sure it's going to continue going until it's solved. And it's a narrative that's never been, it's a situation, sorry, that's never been actually dealt with properly. It's not been looked after properly, and every job has not taken on board that you know what, it doesn't matter if you're a man or woman, let's just make sure you get paid for the work you do. I still see it's not balanced, it's not equal, right? So that's an ongoing matter. But here's the key thing, here's what we lose track of when we're going for this whole race war now. We want to be equal, yeah. And then when the gay rights, the LGBTQ community, when they basically want to equality, here's the key, this is what we lose track of. What if Boris Johnson and government heads sat down with women and said, right, what is it exactly you want to see changed? And they have actually had a good point of things they want changed. Here's the question, do you want power and you now want to be the new man, or do you want equality? And when you hear a lot of the arguments are from, and then I'm not saying all of them are angry, but some of them are angry and they lose point of their goal. You understand me? They lose track of their goal, and they because they're seen as angry, it seems like it's a power struggle, which is not. It's the equality thing. Same thing is equality situation we're talking about. They want equality. It's the same thing with the gay rights movement. It's like you ask them, okay, what is it exactly you want? Because some people say you're just going a bit over the top, and you really should just stay in your lane or stay in your corner, and okay, whatever. If you're gay, you're gay. If you're bisexual, but the whole world don't need to know. Just live your life. And then on the other side, you've got people saying, well, you have no rights. So then obviously when they get angry, again, anger comes into play, and they get very aggressive in the protests. I've seen it with my own eyes. Then it's like, oh, you're aggressive, that's why you're not getting it. But here's what we're losing track of. Do you want equality, or do you want power? Do you want to overtake the status quo, or do you want to just equality? And it's the same thing with Black Lives Matter. What is our agenda? What do we really want from this? Do we really want equality? Do we want the police to be more fairer to the people of color and the so-called ethnic minorities? And I say the so-called ethnic minorities because it leaves a bit of taste in my mouth. I don't believe in them ethnic minorities. Again, like I said in my last video, when the majority of us are the ones that are being abused and treated unfairly and in an inhumane manner. So what's next? Do we want equality or do we want power? Now, if you want equality, it means you want to be on a balanced, equal playing field. If you want power, it means you want to overtake, you want to empower yourselves. But here's the key thing. Again, if Boris Johnson said, okay, people of colour from the motherland, from the Caribbean, Asians and other people of colour, what is it you want? I'm going to give you more power. Would we like, yeah, we want more power now. We want black-only supermarkets. Would we go there, really? That's what you have to ask yourself. Or would we like, no, we just want a fair in football. We want more black football managers, people of colour in the boardrooms as CEOs and managing directors. In a Argos to a Tesco to whatever company, we just want more black people to have equal rights. And so that's where people lose track, because you lose the narrative with all the protests and the riots and everything. It's like, what is your message? And that was my point in the last video, and that's my point in this video. Black Lives Matter, gay pride, equal rights for women. Don't lose track of the narrative. What is it exactly you want? Present to the state head, this is the change we want. Ignore the people go far left and far right and take the point somewhere else and focus on what is the problem. The problem is black people are arrested more and beaten down more just for the color of their skin. People of color, gay people, I'll speak up for them in this discussion, they are mistreated in workplaces. And again, I say it's a case of, well, because they are outrightly gay or bisexual or transgender and they're judged, and to me, wrong. Yeah, especially as a believer, but I still state it's wrong. They shouldn't be treated that way. And then women's rights, like, yes, they should be equally paid and they should have equal rights in the boardrooms and in management positions, etc., etc. Yeah, right. And so what the point is each area where people feel unjust, the point needs to be made clear and people need to be held accountable to why is it still a systematic issue. Everything I just mentioned, there's so many more. Like, you got the environmentalists now stepping up and saying they want to protest because they feel the environment's not being looked after. But who are you holding accountable? And this is what I'd encourage anybody to do. Start to hold people accountable. Stop saying Black Lives Matters and yeah, pride and yeah, equal rights. Come with a message. Come with something poignant. Take the person accountable for that department. Yeah, for that area in society, and hold them back to rights and keep knocking on their door until it systematically filters through from top to bottom, bottom to top, and everybody understands right from wrong. Can't keep everybody happy. You're always going to get a racist. You're always going to get a sexist. You're always going to get someone that's homophobic. You're always going to get someone that it doesn't go with peace. And unfortunately, that's just the life we live. We have people that just seem to get a kick out of racism, get a kick out of sexism, get a kick out of other people suffering. And we live in a system where they don't mind. There's people at top that don't mind being at top and letting the people at the so-called bottom suffer. Problem here is classism. Class in society is the reason why society is to me, not overall, but you have a lot of mess in society. Society overall, we can't judge the whole of society. We can only look at sections of society and say, hey, where's the problem? And I've mentioned some of them. And the reason why I believe, and this is a personal opinion, the reason why we still have these issues in the 21st century is because government heads are not being held accountable. They're not been put to the sword and said, listen, you need to sort it out. Like I said in the last video, take the police commissioner, the head of police, sort out your department, my dear, because the long short is your police officers are still racist and they are seen as racist. Not all of your police officers are racist, but there's enough of them in there that one spoiled, rotten apple affects the bunch. So anyway, with that said, like I say, you go in a workplace and it should be diversity and equality. Diversity and equality courses, little 3-week courses and everything, or in the interview will ask, do you believe in it? Not enough. People need to be held accountable for their actions, and that's what the problem, in my opinion, in society is. Because the long short of it is, I I said it to someone the other day, and they were like, "Are you really black?" And what I said with the Black Lives Matter movement is that, isn't it funny that every time a black person does get arrested, they get beaten down? Oh, there was a good boy, there was innocent. There are some of them that should be arrested. Should they be killed? No. Should they be beaten up? No. But if they have to rough hand them to arrest them, if they're not compliant with what the police officer's saying, then police officer has to get rough. You understand me? But not to kill. But that should be for, it shouldn't be color based or race based. It should be, listen, you don't comply with the law, there's a certain force we're gonna have to take to arrest you, to apprehend you. But once you're arrested and in cuffs, then there's no need to put your neck on your knee on the back of the neck. There's no reason to pull out a gun. And that's the situation here. That's a change that you would need to see in this Black Lives Matters movement. This is the change they should be pushing for, and hold the police commissioner bang to rights. This is the kind of stuff. I mean, I'm going to stop now. It's been 15 minutes, so I always aim for about 20 minutes, and we're at 15 now, so let me just try to wrap it now. And I hope people have listened and understood. Again, not everyone's going to agree with me. Some people are going to say, oh, you don't know what you talk about. Some people say, oh, right, I hear your point. The point of the matter is, and that's the problem in society. People want to speak, and people want to really, really express themselves and say how they feel, what's wrong in their community, and how they feel what's wrong in government, local government. But a lot of people are oppressed. And the oppressed are now speaking out loud. But here's the key point. Not all of them are wanting to riot. Not all of them are rioting or looting. They're just a sad minority that feel they just want to take advantage of a volatile situation. And that's what we're in. We're in a melting pot. And we are in a situation where narratives can't be lost. What is your point? What is your goal? What is it changes you want to see? And the key point there, don't contradict your own mission. Don't contradict that you feel things should be equal, but really what you're looking for is power. There's a big difference between equality and power, and there's where I'm going to close that point. Again, I'd love to see the comments. I'd love to see what people feel. Do you agree with me? You know what I mean? If you've got something to say, something to add, it'd be beautiful to get some support in this. And because at the end of the day, the final point I will say is that the only way forward now is if, and I'll hold churches. So here's what I'm going to say. The only way forward now is if churches, local secondary schools, more colleges and universities than secondary school, but secondary schools is where we start. Local organizations, local institutions in the community need to start banding together and start putting a narrative together. Start putting something in place for themselves. And bringing it to 10 down the street, saying this is what we want in our community. Go to your local MP, because the key thing I would say to wrap, I'm trying my best to wrap down, and the key thing I want to talk about to end this is it not funny how COVID-19 came about and Boris Johnson came on television with his department heads and they spoke and they said what they would like to happen, and the majority of people did listen. There's people that didn't, but unfortunately that's just the way life is sometimes. But is it not funny how that can happen? But right now, before that, we had the Brexit election and we had Brexit itself. It's not funny. MPs were out in force in all the constitutions around the UK trying to drum up support. Here's the question: where are you now? We still have racism in society. Black Lives Matter, all lives matter. Pride protests and marches. Women's equal rights protests and marches. We still have these problems. Where are you, local MPs? You were knocking on my door, Liberal Democrats, you were knocking on my door trying to get my vote, to vote for your party to win an election, to vote for your Brexit deal, and you want to remain. Same thing as Labour. Same thing as the Conservatives. Where are you now? We can only see you on TV about COVID-19. Let's see you on TV trying to sort out the very key issues that is destroying the society as we know it. And with that said, please like, please comment. On YouTube, hit the notification bell. On Facebook, please subscribe to my page. I look forward to your comments, and I'm just going to encourage everybody, please, just look after one another. So start at home, look after one another in your homes. When it goes to your neighbor, just try to understand your neighbor. That's the best thing to do. If you don't get on your neighbor and you don't get on, doesn't necessarily mean something has to be done about it. Just let them live. And that's the key thing. That's what I'm going to leave it with there. This is what I'm going to end with this with, is let people live. hold the local authorities, local government, and the government itself back to rights and hold them to account. And just make sure when you're protesting or marching or whatever you do it in a peaceful manner, and you do it with a message, not an empty slogan, a message. And make sure you're looking for equality and peace and not power, because as you can see what the police do and some government heads do, they abuse their power. Have a good evening, have a good night. That's just part 2, and I'll be hitting you again maybe in the middle of the week. We'll do another couple of subject matters. Look forward to the comments. Have a good night and God bless you.